let's look at the game last night. What a game it was. Perhaps the game of the year, although I felt like we've said that multiple times this year, and one of the best finals we've ever seen. 32 goals, 17 lead changes, and Brisbane get it done with an ordinary finals record. They were challenged early. Their big ruckman went off. Richmond lost Ian Prestia a little bit later on. But, Kingy, a shootout in a final, it is unusual to see that many goals scored.
Yeah, morning, Cornsey. Very unusual. I think these two teams are true to the identity that they've carried for the whole of 2022. They've been poor defensively, both teams, and offensively brilliant. So when you get these two thrown in a melting pot together, this is what you get. 106 points beats 104 points. Fantastic spectacle, great to watch. Ultimately not taking either team to a premiership with these sorts of defensive models. But what a brilliant final, an absolute spectacle. What Lachie Neale did last night, I can't recall a clearance game like it. 15 clearances against, I know Richmond are not a clearance-geared team, but 15 clearances, despite all the attention that he got in the second half, I thought it was just terrific.
21 touches he had, I think 9 clearances at halftime, Lachie Neale. So it's only the 5th time in the past 20 years that both teams have reached 100 points in a final. Usually the defensive structure wins, and I know you want to speak about that very, very shortly. Just on Richmond, a mistake clearly to play Dustin Martin, I thought, and your ears are pricked up before the game when Damien Hardwick says he's only going to be 80% fit. He was a bit of a liability last night, Dustin Martin. They couldn't get him, or they didn't want to get him on the ground in the vital moments. He sat. It felt like just watching on TV, you may have the official numbers of his game time that he played in the last quarter alone, Kingy, but just 3 touches, all of those were in the defensive half, and for the last half of the last quarter, they couldn't get or didn't want to get him on the ground. So a warning to other coaches, injured players, regardless of how good they are and regardless of their reputation, doesn't often work in finals, I don't think.
Yeah, I hold a contrary view, but that's okay. I think him
What is it?
Well, just the fact that he's out there, he takes a matchup. And you get the domino effect. You get lesser ranked players against other talent in that Richmond forward line. And you'd have to say the Richmond forward line functioned. So, I mean, they've finished with 16 goals, 8. So I don't think you can – I don't agree with that opinion. I understand you're hot on him. You're hot on the decision to play him. But why wouldn't you play him? I mean, what he's done in finals, we haven't seen a player like this before in finals. So when he's declared fit to play, what you don't play him?
Well, I don't know. If he's 80% fit and they couldn't get him on or didn't want to get him on the last 10 minutes of the game, you lose Prestia, which means Edwards comes on. So you lose the structure and the rotation a little bit there. And I just thought he was way underdone. Hadn't played since
But we know
round
that,
16.
though, don't we? We know he's underdone, but he's...
So to what level underdone? He looked way underdone.
I think the plan would have been to manage his minutes. So when you lose one early, that goes out the window. When you have to use the substitute, maybe the plan was to hope to sub him out of the game at some point. Or I think that the reason why he would have been on the bench is the risk of injury.
Do or die. There's no tomorrow.
No, I know.
What's the point of having him on the bench? You lose, you're out.
Yeah, I understand that, but you still got to manage the player, don't you? I mean, you're not doing it to your own demise.
Well, I think at that point in the game, with 10 minutes left, when it's seesawing, lead changes, you don't know who's going to win. It's so tight. You just have your best players out there, and the same goes for Brisbane. I mean, they had Zach Bailey, who was incredible in the second half. They had him on the bench for ages. Now maybe they just couldn't get him on. Daniel Rich was there as well. Shea Bolton for a moment was on the bench. They just felt like they didn't want to get Dustin on. Felt like he was absolutely cooked.
Well, I'll give you the contrary view. So let's have a look at what Lachie Neale did. Lachie Neale played the last 85 minutes of football in the midfield.
Point. That's the point.
No, Lachie Neale's a different beast to Dustin Martin, right?
I understand that, but get your best players on when the whips are cracking in an elimination final.
So I'm talking positively about Lachie Neale. Okay,
Yep.
For a midfielder to play 100% of second half and add on to that the last 15 minutes of the second quarter, I haven't seen that before. So I was panicking for Brisbane late in game. Do they have to get Lachie off? Is he out of tickets? Is he out of gas? They had a boundary throw and he's rubbing the brow. He looked spent.
He did.
And I thought, wow, this is an amazing performance. 39 disposals. Everyone's talked about the 15 clearances. I want to break it down a little bit more if we can. What does it look like? And at what point do you think you need to tag like a full-blown hard tag. I know Pickett went to him. I know Cochin went to him at times, and they'd lost Prestia, so they lost that luxury. So his 7 centre bounce clearances resulted in 3 goals. And one of the boundary throwing clearances resulted in another goal. So they kicked 7 goals from stoppages, the Brisbane Lions, and Lachie Neale's his work results in 4 of those 7. Unbelievable game.
So we've butted heads a bit on this all year, haven't we, about the tag? Even from round 1 when Petrarca got off the chain against the Western Bulldogs, and I said, well, how can Luke Beveridge be beaten again by the Norm Smith medalist? And we were discussing how does it affect your structure. I've got a firm view, because I've been in the situation, it's really hard to tag someone when they're on fire. When they have their tail up and they have their momentum going and they're into the groove of the game and it's coming easily to them, it's really difficult to send someone to kneel at halftime when he's had 21 and 9 clearances already. I think that call had to be made pre-game. Now, Richmond were never going to tag him pre-game because that's not what they do, and they haven't done that, and Damien Hardwick's going to back himself in to do that. I don't agree that that's the right decision, because if you look at Lachie Neale's performances when someone has gone to him and the effect on Brisbane, they really, as Anna said with us, they don't win unless he's dominant, particularly with Lions not there. So, last week in round 23 against Melbourne, he had a bit of the ball, but they put a lot of time into him. The same went for the last time Melbourne played, where he only had 22. Windhager did a great job. Now, they won that game, but just. There was a game against the Bombers where he had low 20s and they lost. Take Lachie Neale out, Brisbane don't win. So at what point do you go, I know it's not what we do and it's not our preferred method, but I was surprised at the lack of attention that they gave him. Particularly, they didn't have a ruckman either. So,
yeah, I want to get
44 list spots, Kingy, and they don't have one tagger.
Well,
I think
Jack Graham. They got Jack Graham. He was in the 26, but not in the 22.
Could have done the job, but they spoke about his preparation not being fully up to it last night. So, yeah, I just think it's negligent for any team that doesn't have a dedicated tagger in a professional era. And yeah, it cost him the game last night.
I think he's untaggable.
Nah, but he's not. Windhager kept him to 16.
Yeah.
Young player in his has hardly played much footy at all. Disciplined, hard-nosed approach, kept Lachie Neale to 16. So I don't want to hear that rubbish that anyone is untaggable. Everyone is taggable if you have a person willing to sacrifice their game in a disciplined way to do it. And Windhager on that night had enough of the footy himself. He had the low 20s himself. Everyone's taggable, and Lachie Neale's taggable.
They're taggable, but to curtail Lachie Neale's centre bounce clearances are a different beast altogether.
Yeah,
I disagree.
I agree with that.
Well, that's what I'm saying. His 3 of his 4 goals that he set up from clearances were from centre bounce clearances.
But you needed to make life difficult for him. There's a way that you can
They did try that.
Well, how hard did they try?
They went to pick. I mean, how many people can you give the challenge to? So I just think you have to, in the end, celebrate what Lachie Neale did.
We're going to do that.
He ripped the heart out of Richmond last night. He was a one-man war. He really was. And I just think that no matter what Damien Hardwick, what lever he was likely to pull, this guy was out of control. And I think we should just celebrate what a night it was.
Talk to me about the ruckman.
Well, do we overrate the influence of absolute hit-outs? And I know as soon as we say this, the argument comes back about the hit-outs that Max Gawn can hit and the hit-outs that Sean Darcy can perform and Jared Witt's on occasion, these types of ruckmen. And they do set up goals. I'm not saying they don't. But when you see the involvement in the game of Danaher and McStay last night, they've been stuck forward. Their forward line's been too tall for weeks. And all of a sudden, they have to play one of those guys in the ruck, and the forward line functions like it hasn't for 6 weeks. And I think, well, should they have looked at this? And we keep saying when you're looking for change, trying to reinvent your own game plan, if you like, and try and spark a response when you're underperforming. I know he's a big loss, Oscar McInerney, because he's their prime ruckman and their solo ruckman, but I think it worked for Brisbane to be a little bit smaller forward of the ball.
And Hardwick spoke about this after the game. He said, look, it disrupted what we wanted to do a little bit in defence because we were really tall in defence because of the 3 talls that Brisbane have. Now, one of them went into the ruck, which meant we were too tall because they didn't have a matchup. The hit-outs last night, just for the raw numbers, 55-16 in Richmond's favour, yet they lost the clearances by 6.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll just look at the overall game. So if you look at the overall game, 63 inside 50s to 59. Like, you just don't see these numbers. You really don't. So you've got to just work out what you value. So I think if coming into this game, if you knew it was going to be a shootout, you would have thought that Richmond would have won this game every day of the week. They love turnover games. They love games in flow. It's a line ball. It's one of those ones where the siren goes, you're in front, you're behind, under a goal. Good luck to you. It's a big price to pay when your season winds up the way it does, and it shapes a lot of off-field decisions at the end of the season. But I'm kind of glad for Chris Fagan. Like, we've put him under the hammer the last few weeks. He looked like a man under pressure coming into the game. It looked like that was going to permeate through the group, and the fallout today would have been enormous for Chris Fagan.
Massive.
So I'm thrilled for Chris that they got across the line.
We'll talk about the fallout for Richmond and what that means. Now, Damien Hardwick has said it's more rejuvenate the list more so than reset. Clearly, they're going to target a Taranto or a Hopper to try and help out the ageing players. What does it mean for Dustin Martin? He said definitively Dustin Martin will be at Richmond next year with 2 years to go of his contract, so you can stop asking that question. But will Trent Cotchin go on? He was terrific early, Trent, last night, but just the 5 touches and 14 for the game in the second half. So they got some big decisions to make about those players. Tigers fans, 1300 736 736. You can have your say on that. Plenty to get through this morning, but right now it's time for Buddy Bet.
Oh, I don't know. I just feel the technology's not good enough. It hasn't been for a long period of time. I think we've put a lot of money into it, and clearly it's indecisive still. So they've got goal umpires. Pick which way you want to go. The whole thing is that the technology is not to the level that it needs to be. So either get it better or don't have it. Like, I sit there and I see the same vision you do. I see the umpire make a call, and generally it's got to be definitive to overturn it.
It's pretty costly though. Would you like to see
Oh, really? Do you think so? Do you think it's really costly?
Would you like to see some investment into the technology over the summer?
Well, why don't we just let the umpires make the call? They're paid to do a job. Let them do a job. Or don't have them. One of the two. Like, to me, it doesn't make any sense. But anyway, I was pretty adamant when it first came out. But the fact of the matter is, what we did see is we saw a pretty good game of footy. And one side had to lose, and unfortunately that was us tonight.
Damien Hardwick wants the arc gone. He wants the goal line technology gone, and that was his thoughts. We discussed that in depth, actually a little bit earlier, prior to 6:30. You can catch up on the podcast if you want the view on that. Richmond finished the season 0-1 draw and 5 losses in games decided by under a kick this season. So that, in essence, cost them again last night. But Kingy, there was some great players on the field last night that really came to play, and a lot of them were Brisbane jumpers.
Yeah, I think we're quick to go after players when the heat's on them and they underperform. I thought Dane Zorko last night led the way really well. I thought the week that he's had, the preparation coming into this game, the scrutiny was unbelievable on him, and to stand tall like he did. At crunch moments too. Some of his ball use was brilliant. He only had the 21 disposals, but seven inside 50s, 5 score involvements. It's a standard game from Zorko. Nothing outrageous. But I just think he needed to be the leader they got last night.
Yeah, had a level head last night as well. He much better player centre forward for me, and Rich and Kitty Coleman across half back clearly have taken the spot Zorko was playing earlier. And with Cam, I'm looking forward to seeing Cam Rayner next week, and they can unleash him, because Brisbane have the best group of small forwards in the comp, and I think we saw that last night. Charlie Cameron is a star and won some crucial one-on-one. Zach Bailey was back to his best footy. I thought their composure at times to actually with their ball movement late was important, and Hugh McCluggage was central to that. Some decisions that they made, they realised when they had to take the ball through the middle and take a risk. Didn't always work, but I thought there was a level of composure last night that probably just gave Brisbane an edge over Richmond late in that game.
I thought the biggest move from Chris Fagan that had the greatest influence on the game was playing Charlie Cameron a lot higher. He was actually running back towards goal rather than out of the goal square leading and having to turn his man and do so much. You're asking players then to kick the ball to ground. It's an unconventional method. So him further up the ground, I thought was brilliant. I know he kicks 3 goals, he has 11 disposals, but the constant threat and the things that he did, the knock-on that created a goal, just the smarts. And he just was a mismatch for the Tigers all night. We know they didn't have Grimes, so don't bother texting that in. But if this guy can light it up through a final series, anything can happen. You need your spark players to play great football, And I thought Charlie was terrific last night.
He was awesome. I know you highlighted Starcevic on Bolton at halftime, and a couple of times that Bolton got away from him, and it was really good vision. Just didn't have the body on him that he needed, and Bolton made him pay. But I mean, if you had have said Shea Bolton's going to have 10 touches and just kick 2 goals, you absolutely take that. So the round 20 game where he had 7 shots on goal and completely got a hold of Brisbane, and they didn't have a matchup. Starcevic didn't play. So credit to him as well. We're all going to talk about Neale and Cameron and Bailey and Zorko and these players, but a big shout out to Starcevic on how important, particularly his second half. Like, Bolton had 3 touches in the second half and was nowhere when the game was on the line.
So at halftime, and I know not everyone buys into the rating system, so Shea Bolton was the number 1 rated player on the ground.
Yeah, from 7 touches, wasn't it?
Yeah, so all of his touches influenced the scoreboard. So that's what we're talking about, impact over accumulation. I know Lachie Neale was out of control from a clearance point of view, but not all of those were impacting the scoreboard. It was more of a territory result for them. So that was the matchup. At halftime I said, this is the matchup. So if Starcevic can get the job done, then he gives Brisbane a chance. But if Bolton can light up, and they were getting plenty of opportunities. So you see 10 disposals and you think, oh, yeah, he's done a pretty good job clamping him. But when you see that Richmond have had 63 inside 50s, to keep him to 10 is unbelievable. You have to give that a greater weighting than what you normally would.
Yeah, I thought he was awesome. Righto, let's go to a couple of your calls. Toby has been waiting patiently. You want to speak about the fallout for Richmond. Toby, good morning.
Morning, guys. Kingy, you can't tell me that he is not taggable. Lachie Neale had 3 clearances in a row. I'm a disgruntled Richmond fan, by the way. 3 clearances in a row, and you look in the midfield, and Jaden Short's standing 2 metres away from him, and so is Shea Bolton in the third quarter. Kane Corns could keep him to 25 touches just by standing next to him.
Oh, don't do this, Toby.
Don't do this again. I'm with you, Toby. I'm with you. I'm with you.
You were going
Get me out there, Toby.
You were going really well, Toby, until you let yourself down. Now, look, I think there's a big difference between tagging someone at centre bounce clearances and how effective you can be, given it's basically a 3-on-3 battle at ground level. And I think that Lachie Neale is almost untaggable. And I'm happy to say
I'm looking
that.
forward to, Kingy. So the loser is Sydney or Melbourne.
Oh.
They're going to come after Neale, whoever it is, because both of them will have a plan and have had a plan this year. So it might be Mills from Sydney, or it'll be Harms or someone, even Brayshaw from Melbourne if they lose. So Lachie Neale needs to rest those legs this morning because he won't be afforded those freedoms whether they play next week.
Guys, let's just appreciate the fact he had an unbelievable night.
We just put a Twitter poll up comparing him to Simon Black.
You did, which was ridiculous, which you didn't consult on.
I asked you the question, not happy with it. It's very, very weighted in favour of Simon Black, if you're wondering how we're going. Jamie is on the line. The Lions, Jamie, what'd you make of their game?
Yeah, look, absolutely thrilled this morning. Obviously, as a Lions fan, and I can't comment on that goal because I'm biased, and I'll be honest about that. I was really glad, Kingy, you brought up that point about Ruckman perhaps a little bit overrated. Just here on the left, please, mate. Sorry, guys, I'm just in the Uber. When McInerney went off, it actually benefited the Lions because it got Danaher and McStay actually
Jamie, there's my music. Sorry to cut you off in an Uber. There's my music, meaning we've got to get to the news on time this morning, but we'll get back to your calls and a number of other calls after the all-important news headlines.